Hi, this is Steve Adler. Got a minute? I want to talk to you about some of the emails I've been getting here recently. People that, quite frankly, are a little frustrated and concerned looking out on really pretty days and seeing so many people in the parks bunched up together, playing with each other, not doing the physical distancing, and they're asking me if that's fair. You know, I don't know about fair, but I do know two things. The first one is it started raining today. Looks like it's going to rain here for the next several days. At the very least, that means probably there's going to be less people out in the parks. But I will say, that I understand. You're in a house, you're alone, you're just busting at the seams. You want to go out, you want to be with people, and Austin is just beautiful this time of year when the sun is out. We've got to fight that. We really got to show the discipline, even on the pretty days, in order to keep the physical separation where we need it to be. I was on here yesterday talking about the A- we got. Said we were one of only 3 counties in the state to get an A-. Scorecard came out today reflecting those really pretty days, and our grade went down to B-. Still the 3rd best county in the state, but we're not doing the kind of thing that we should do, and we need to maintain that kind of discipline. We've got to actually not go near each other. That's how this virus spreads. If we don't have physical interaction with new and different people, this virus will just stop in its tracks. It'll slow down. We won't have the peak. So even on the pretty days, we need to make sure that we're doing this the way that we should. Numbers have gone up in the city. We're up to 430 now. That's an increase of 79. It's about 18%, a little higher than the 15% we've been doing for the last week. I talked to the docs, and they tell me that number probably is not an indication right now of a lack of social distancing. Remember, would have been 7 days ago, because it takes that long to manifest. But what we're seeing is probably the result of actually having more testing out in our city right now. And with more tests, we're going to identify more people, because we know there are a lot of people around our city that have the virus, don't even know that they ever had it. They don't have any symptoms. But the more testing, the more we're going to find those kinds of people. I can't tell you how many tests we've given. My best assessment from what I'm hearing is probably 2,500 to 3,000 tests. The infection rate that we're reporting is probably about 1 in 10. But that doesn't mean that 1 in 10 people have it, because we're basically testing the people that are sick or the people that are at the front lines and the greatest chances of being exposed to it. I think that what we're going to start doing is putting into the dashboard and keeping track of the number of people that get hospitalized, because that's an objective number. It's not dependent on how many people we test or we don't test. And as we get more and more tests and test more and more people, we're going to find more and more people. So I think we're going to start posting that number, accumulating that number, and then putting it out so that we can see that too. The reason we don't know exactly how many tests are given is because there are a lot of labs out that are giving tests and they don't report the numbers. They're sending them into the state as the law requires, but sometimes they're going in just by faxes or handwritten documents, and they're just giving so many tests out. The state doesn't have time to really compile the numbers, so we're not getting that data. But we're going to focus on what we're doing here. We're going to focus, and I think the next model we see is going to be based on hospitalizations. But let's keep our effort going. So today, I was on Twitter, part of a national program with mayors. People gave in questions into Twitter. We answered them on Twitter. I'm going to go through some of the questions I answered, because I'm getting these questions all over. KT Ginger Kid wanted to know how severe symptoms have to be able to get a test. I'm not a doc. I'm not the right person to answer that question, but I will tell you that we're giving those tests right now to the first responders, to the healthcare workers, or people who are really sick. That's the priority. If you think that you are, talk to your doctor. If you don't have a doctor, call community care. More and more tests are going to be available, but you still have to go through a doctor in order to be able to get one, or one of the hospital systems we have. Mohammed Samim and Maria Heidegger both asked question, hey, why don't you do something about stopping rents from going up on my apartment? Can you lower them? Can you stop them from going up? I wish we could. City doesn't have the power to do rent controls. But what we have done is we passed ordinances, and I entered an emergency order that should stop evictions from taking place. So for right now, if you're caught in this, you shouldn't lose your home. Joe S. wanted to know how many ICU beds and ventilators does Austin have, and how many do we need? You know, we have about 750 ICU beds and ventilators. How many we need is entirely dependent on how we do with social distancing. If we do a really good job and stop a peak from happening, and we can elongate this and the virus coming to us, then we have everything that we need. But if we don't and we have a peak, then we're going to have to be using those sparingly, and we're going to have to find additional resources potentially. And we have plans to be able to do that and bring in different facilities and to expand to the surge. And we'll go through some more and more of those details. But the one thing we know is we don't have a good answer to that question. It's all dependent on what it is that we do. Hey, the next question was, is this lockdown going to last all the way through June? Hey, come on, be honest, it says. Always trying to be honest. That's another question too. We don't know the right answer. The president's order, the governor's order go through the end of April. Probably the city will extend its order that long. But how long this lasts and in what form it lasts, what restrictions we need to keep in place, totally dependent on whether we're dealing with a big spike or whether we're dealing with something that's been flattened out. So we have control over that. At this point, we're getting new information and data every week. We're sharing that information and data, and you're seeing it just as we're seeing it. We got a question from Political Joint, from Carrie Thomas, and from Johnny Quest, all wanting to know about why we have so many essential businesses, why we're letting construction activity continue, and why did we open up churches. I will tell you that the city's tried really hard to button this down as much as we can. The governor issued an order that opened some things up. I will tell you that I am appreciative that the governor issued an order statewide, because in the long run, that's going to work to our benefit. But as for churches, even if you have the ability to be able to open up, even the governor says don't do it if you can do it remotely, and we've been doing it that way, and the churches here in Central Texas have indicated they're going to. Essential businesses, the governor increased that number. He's allowing construction to go forward. We can't control that, but what we can control is what we do. So I'm still asking people, again, regardless of what the orders are, if you can avoid going to work, if you don't have to do the construction, please don't do it. And if you're going to do it, if you're going to have a construction site, please really take care of the workers. Really, please do the kinds of mitigation steps that we see to try to protect those workers and their families, and really the whole general community. All right, so I'm going to conclude with my favorite part of this. We talk about pictures on people are doing at home that are fun. This one's absolutely beautiful. Here's a planner. It was done by Matt in the 8th grade. That's a pretty impressive thing. Here's Matt himself working on the wood. Thanks for sending that in, Matt. I really appreciate it. Send me in what you got. We are all celebrating everybody else's achievement, just like we're looking out for everybody else's health. Y'all take care and be safe.